This is lesson 12, cones and spheres. So the first thing that we're going to look at here is the volume of cones and pyramids, where, if you remember, our volume equals 1/3 capital BH, where the B is the area of the base. And next, so for example 1, it's what is the lateral length of a cone shown below. Well, if you look at this cone, it does form a right triangle, which means this right here is our C in our Pythagorean theorem. So using the Pythagorean theorem, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to use 3 squared plus 4 squared equals c squared, or x. So I have 9 plus 16 equals c squared. I have 25 equals c squared. Taking the square root of both of these, I have c then is going to equal 5. So here, and let me erase that, and it should be c, actually. C is then going to equal 5. So my lateral length, or that side, is going to be 5. Now, if you notice on the right-hand side here, the diagonal in a pyramid is called a slant. So if you notice here, it has our slant height and our regular height, okay? Now, they can be two different things, okay? They are two different things. So B says, determine the exact volume of a cone shown below. Now here we have a little bit of an issue, again, because we don't know what the radius is down here. So we've got to find this first. So when we're trying to find that, and actually I'm going to change color so it's nice and I can see that a little bit better in black. There we go. So here we've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And that's actually an a, sorry. So here we've got a squared plus 6 squared equals 9 squared. So here, now I have a squared plus 36 equals 81. So subtracting 36 from both sides, I have a squared equals 45. Taking the square root of both sides, I have a equals the square root of 45. Now I'm going to leave this, and the reason that I am is because it wants the exact volume. Remember, exact is when you give an answer in terms of pi. And because when we have the area of the base, remember, is pi r squared. And my radius is a. So if I square this, my answer is going to be 45. So here I have the volume equals 1/3 capital BH. So then it's going to be 1/3 pi r squared h. So now I have 1/3 pi r squared times 6, which is my height. So now squaring that square root of 45, I have 1/3 pi times 45 times 6. Well, when I multiply all of that together, I have 90 pi units. Cubed. Because remember, it wants an exact volume, which means you leave your answer in terms of pi. Our next question says, determine the volume of the pyramid shown below. Give an exact answer using a square root. Well, here you have to remember, okay, for our volume, okay, we have, volume equals 1/3 capital BH. Well, first of all, I need a height, which we do not have. Secondly, I need a length and width. Now, just so we do have a length and width, okay, because it's a square, all right. Remember, this goes to the center here, and my length here is 1. So if I continue this on to the other side here, remember, if the first side is 1, that's half. So I have the other side, which is 1, which makes this entire thing 2. So the first thing I need to do is I need to find this piece here, my side of my rectangle. My slant height here is 2, so that is my C. So I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I have a squared plus 1 squared equals 2 squared. So I have a squared plus 1 equals 4. Subtracting 1 from both sides, I have a squared equals 3. Taking the square root of both sides, I have a equals the square root of 3. So my height then is the square root of 3. So now, while I'm doing my volume here, I have 1/3 length times width times height. So I have 1/3 2 times 2 times the square root of 3. Remember what the directions say, using a square root. So now I have 2 times 2 is 4 times the square root of 3. So I have 4 square root of 3 over 3 units cubed. And that is my actual answer. Okay, that's my actual answer. It can be written this way. It can also be written 4/3 square root of 3. It's the same thing. Okay. The next thing that I have here is the volume of a sphere. The volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. So if I want to find out what is the length of the radius of a sphere known below, give an exact answer using a square root. Remember, we have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. These here are going to be the same. Okay, so here if I have a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I have x squared plus x squared equals 12 squared. Well, x squared and an x squared is 2x squares, equaling 144. I'm going to divide both sides by 2. I have x squared equals 72. Well, if I take the square root of both, I have x equals the square root of 72. I can simplify this. It says give the exact answer. So I can simplify this by 36 times 2. So when I multiply this, the square root of 36 is 6, which means 6 square root 2. and that would be my answer. And labeling it would be millimeters. So in closing, our question is going to be, which has a larger volume? Give an approximate answer, rounded to the tenths place. Okay? So the first one is my pyramid. So the first thing I have to do is I have to find my height here. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I have half of 12 is 6, so this would be 6. So I have a squared plus 6 squared equals 10 squared, because that's my slant height or my hypotenuse. So now I made that x, so I gotta change that. So I have x squared plus 36 equals 100. Subtracting 36 from both sides. I have x squared equals 64. Taking the square root of both sides, I have x equals 8. So now my volume is 1/3 base times height, or 1/3 length times width times height. So 1/3, 12 times 12 times 8. Well, when I multiply that out, I'm going to get, and I know I multiplied it out, I just don't have it in front of me, so 12 times 12 times 8 times 1/3. I get 384. Centimeters cubed. For my next problem, I have to find my radius first. So again, I've got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So here I've got x squared plus x squared equals 6 squared. So here I have 2x squared equals 36. Divide both sides by 2. So I have x squared equals 18. If I take the square root of that, I have x is going to equal square root of 18. Now here you have to watch, because for my sphere, my volume, remember, is 4/3 pi, I don't need that yet, r cubed. Okay. Now remember what we said, to square it would remove that square root symbol, but this isn't, okay? So you do have to be careful here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace, so 4/3 pi square root of 18 to the 3rd power. So you can put this in your calculator, but what you have to do is hit the left parenthesis button first, then hit the square root button of 18, then hit your up arrow your right parenthesis button, and then your arrow button in 3. What it would look like is this. So you would have the left parenthesis, and you would have this with a parenthesis, 18. You would have the parenthesis here, and then you would have your arrow and the 3, and then it would hit equals. So you'd have the parenthesis like this, and then it would give you an answer. The answer it's going to give you is 4/3 pi, and it's going to give you 76.36 753 237. With that being in your calculator, you can simply hit multiply pi multiply 4/3, and it's going to give you this number next. So you're going to hit equals, and it's going to give you 319.8875 rounded to the nearest tenth. You're going to get 319.9 centimeters cubed. So which is larger, the volume, the pyramid, has a larger volume. And that ends today's lesson.